guys, if you watched the first video, then welcome back. If you didn't, welcome for the first time. This is the second video in a series that I'm doing for a college project. Basically what I'm going to do is break down the writing, recording, and mastering process of making music. And if you want to do this at home, really all you need is a recording software. I'm using Cubase AI6 and whatever instruments that you feel like you want to use. And it's pretty simple, actually. I've gotten a few reviews, not really criticisms, but pointers that I got from my friends for the last video, and one of them specifically stuck out to me that it wasn't specific enough to each part of the process. So from now on, each video is going to take a specific look into each part of it, namely the recording process, the mastering of each instrument, and the songwriting process. So as much fun as I had hitting things with drumsticks to make the drums for the last song, it kind of came to my attention that there are definitely more ways than one to make drums, so I'm not going to do that again, just for the sake of variety. So if you watched the last video, you'll probably notice that I didn't really use my nice Roland keyboard from the 90s that I have, mainly because it's a synthesizer, and those are made for making sort of like electronic music. And granted, it has instrument sounds, like, I can make string sections and piano and stuff like that on it. But I used the other keyboard because it has specific instruments in mind, rather than this one that just says like strings or guitar sounds or whatever it may be. It does, however, have a drum pad, which basically is like a series of little square buttons, and then each button that you press has a different sound to it, like a bass drum and a snare and a hi-hat and toms and stuff like that. And I didn't use it the first time around because it sounds a little too electronic, but that made me think, why not just make an electronic song? So I guess we're making a trap song. Wish me luck, because I have no idea how electronic music really works. I don't listen to it that much. I like it a lot, and I listen to it a lot when I work out or play video games. I'm gonna stop lying, I don't work out. But usually if I'm playing video games or doing something that involves focus, like doing my homework and stuff like that, it's very helpful to keep me focused on what I'm doing, because it's almost kind of motivating. So these are the two. Start with this one. This is more piano based. You can play chords that do or don't sound good, but you can still play chords. And over here I have the little buttons that change the sound, and so on and so forth. This was a birthday gift. It is the Roland Phantom S. It was made quite a long time ago, and as you can see, it has the drum pad that'll light up in just a second once it's done powering up, and everything else is kind of based around making synth effects. So I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, but I've got it plugged up to my little amp here, and you can play one of the biggest differences between this keyboard and this keyboard is that this one is more of a synthesizer, which means you can't play chords necessarily, but you can combine notes in a sliding type sound that'll kind of transition from one note to the next, rather than just one note, then the other note, and that sort of thing. So I've got this disgusting sounding synth sound called Unplug It, and it sounds weird. But what I was explaining with the chords is that while on this, I can play a chord. On this, if I tried to play that, you only get that one sound. But you can, however, do something like this. So I've been thinking about this for about 2 minutes now, and I can already tell that making electronic music is completely different from making contemporary or acoustic music like I did in the first video, because there's not really chord progressions or anything like that necessarily. It's mostly based around a melody and a bass, and then the drum beat behind it. Regardless of everything that I just tried to point out, the first thing that I want to do is come up with an introduction, and then maybe I'll just add something behind that. So I'm going to take a few minutes, figure out what I want to do, and I'll get back to you. One of the fun and weird things about making an electronic song is that you don't really have to have much of a music theory knowledge to do it. As long as it sounds kind of interesting, you can just do whatever you think feels right. And it feels weird throwing my decent knowledge of music theory out the window to do this, but I've come up with an intro and kind of a drop, at least the melodies for those, and hopefully they'll sound good. This is weird, I'm not gonna lie. I've never made electronic music before, so I can't really imagine how this is going to turn out, but after writing little tiny bits and pieces, I'm pretty excited for how it's going to turn out. Alright, I'm going to stop rambling and we're just going to jump into this and see how it turns out. Really quick, I'm going to point out that if you have a MacBook with GarageBand on it, you can very easily make electronic music because they have a part of it where you can basically pull up an instrument really easily on the computer itself, and it pulls up a little piano roll on one side, and then you can just click where you want the notes to go and how long they'll be and that sort of stuff. But I feel like that's just not as fun as playing an actual instrument, so I'm going to do that instead. And again, naturally, I'm using Cubase AI6 because I don't really like GarageBand as much. I feel like it's a little too basic, and that's not as interesting to me. Before I get too much into the production, though, I'm going to scroll through all the instrument settings on my keyboards and find out what I can and can't use, and I'll just give you little glimpses of that because I don't want to show off too much of how the song's going to go because then it'll be too predictable. On that note, let's look and see what we got. I wrote down a handful of keyboard settings really quickly, and I'm just going to run through them all so you can get a glimpse of what I might be using. Now on this keyboard there are a few settings that you can use that actually do create chords and replicate piano and other instruments, but I don't really plan on using those too much for this simply because I have this keyboard here that does it a little bit better. I will be using this keyboard for the majority of the song that we're creating this time though. Since I don't think I'll be doing anything with my guitars for this specific song, I'm just going to set up everything on these chairs behind me and probably get really uncomfortable. Here goes. Now, despite everything I said about whether or not you can use music theory to make electronic music, I did, by force of habit, end up using a specific scale to make all of the melodies, and that's G minor. I didn't really mean to do that, but that's just kind of how it came up, and I'm gonna stick with it. I got really scatterbrained in the process of editing all of this, and I forgot to mention some pretty basic stuff, so I'm switching between day 2 and day 1. But when you first open the app, there's all the recent projects, there's pre-made things that have all of your channels already created and stuff like that. Same with these. I usually just go for an empty project because it's simple and blank when it starts out. And the first thing I'm going to want to do is set up my devices, because right now it's just using my microphone that's built into my laptop. That is not going to sound good if I tried to play using that. So we're going to click up here on devices. First we're going to go to device setup, and I've plugged in my audiogram, which is the Yamaha USB right here. So we're going to change that switch, and that should change this down here. Make sure all of these are visible and active. Okay, now go to devices again, go to VST connections, and you want to make sure that you can see both of these. And there's nothing plugged into the audiogram right now, so it is going to be useless at the moment. But that's the basis of how to get things set up, and then we can start getting our instruments prepared. To get a live instrument set up, I already did it once, but I'll do it again. You just right click, add audio track. You can choose the amount that you set up and your configuration. I keep it on stereo. Excuse me, you add track. Add a track, you're going to press this little button, and I don't have everything set up and it's going to make a loud screeching noise, so I'm not going to do it. Yeah, you press this button to make sure that it's able to pick up your inserts and everything like that on the side, and then you make sure it's highlighted and you just press record. And when you're done, you can play it back. Press record. Picked up my own voice. And yeah, that's how it works. That's the basis of it. And you know, as it goes on, you'll have more things set up, and you'll be able to do a little bit more when you actually have sound. And we'll get into that in just a minute. So we're going to go to Inserts. Power on this first one by clicking here. And here's all of the things that you can do for inserts. You know, there's things like adding compression, but I'm not going to mess with any of this too much, really. I just want a ton of reverb on it. So we'll click here, and here's all of the things you can change, And if you don't really know what you're doing with this, there's always pre-made ones from Cubase, and I'm going to pick one of these just to make it a little more simple on my end and see how it turns out. Okay, so I've gotten some of the instruments laid out. You can see here I've got a separate hi-hat, clap, kick, and snare drum, along with a lead melody and a bass. But you can see right in here, I will use this to solo out just the sound. You can hear the snare drum is loud there and quiet there. So what I will do is I will check this right here to see what the decibel comes in at. Right here it says 10, and I will adjust this one accordingly. So that way they even out and they're both the same volume. Good. Okay, now that I have got the snare kind of fixed, you can see that for the rest of this, these snares are basically too quiet to hear. So what I'll do is I will just delete all of these. Okay, now since this one is the prime example of what we want, I'll just take this and I will copy it. You can either right click and use that insignia. I'll just use Command C because it's a little more simple. And then highlight the instrument that you want it to replace on, and Command V, click up here, Command V, go all the way until we have it as many times as we want. There we go. Really quickly, I'm going to adjust the decibels for each of the sounds. Let's see if this is loud enough. Can just bring that up a little. Another fun thing that I've added in here is you can see this white line on the kick. It mutes out the sound here. This is called a fade out, and normally it kind of slowly brings the volume down to a close, but what I've done here is I've edited the way that it drops right here. So if I click beyond the white line here, I can adjust this to however I want. So I could move this and make it fade out slowly, or I can do what I did before and have it drop completely, and I can apply that. I didn't change it, but you know, if I were to set this here, now this line down here is slowly fading out rather than it being a drop in volume. So doing it like this just kind of mutes the entire thing. Mess with that all I want, but I'm going to keep it this way for various reasons. With this, we can solo out all the sounds except for maybe just one. I'm going to use this one. I'm going to keep the sound in that area, and I'm going to reduce the sound everywhere else. So here, this little top white triangle right here, I can just drag this to about the same spot that one's in, and do the same thing here. Actually, I think on this one I just kind of stopped playing. Yeah, now that we have that done, it'll have a little break. A friend of mine told me that I should distort the drums for this last breakdown, or drop, so I'm going to duplicate this track, and on this one I'm going to have the amp simulator off and the reverb on, and on this one I'm going to have the amp simulator on and the reverb off, and then I can delete these all the way through, and on the other one I will delete all of it later on, but now this has more of a distortion to it and the rest of it will sound clean. I got everything done with the song, Visuomotor Values. It's the electronic song I've been working on for the last few days. I'm going to go ahead and open up the completed project so that I can show you how to export it and compress it into an MP3. So here's the entirety of the song. I'm going to start from the very beginning. Turn this off really quick, and up where this little pin is, I'm going to click, and now you see there's these little things I can drag. So I'm going to take this end and bring it all the way to where I want the song to end. There we go. We're going to leave that right there. Now that is the complete time of the track. I can right click right here, turn this into seconds. You can see it's about a minute, or 3 minutes and 27 seconds, excuse me. Now that I've gotten this from beginning to end, I'm going to go to File, go to Export, choose Audio Mixdown, choose the name of the song, that's the name of the last one. This is my computer. The file format should be MPEG 1 layer 3 file, otherwise known as an MP3. Instead of choosing high quality mode to get the best quality, I actually just turn the bitrate and sample rate to the highest possible choices. I think that's everything we need. We're going to click export, and this may take a minute or two as well, but once it's done I will have it in a separate MP3 file, and from there I can put it onto either iTunes or I can save it on my computer. From that I can put it on my phone, and if you don't want to share your music, you can easily just plug your phone into your computer and download it from your computer onto your phone and listen to it whenever you choose. And I'm going to do that, as well as upload the songs to Bandcamp and Spotify and things like that once I'm done with the entire album. Okay, and it should be done. Really quick, I'm going to double check to see if it's actually on my computer, and I will come back. Alright, everything's ready to go. This one actually took a lot less time than the song I did first, mainly because it was all very simple to do. It was all just melody, and the bass followed the melody. The drums were also pretty easy to make on the drum pad on my keyboard. I've gotten a few reviews already. So far I've heard good things from people that listen to a lot of electronic music. They said that it was very promising for someone who doesn't make electronic music like myself. I hope you guys like it. This time I'm not going to use any sort of, nature footage or anything like that. I'm actually just going to show you what it looks like when you play through the entire thing on Cubase before you have it filed into an MP3. Alright, here we go. Alright, so that was the song. The drums were a little bit off if you didn't notice. The drums were off by about 1/8 of a beat, and that was really hard to fix due to like latency issues with the program itself. Not that it's that bad, but also I'm not very good at playing on a drum pad. But it was definitely fun to make. I had a great time with the song, in all honesty. Even though I'm not a huge electronic musician, like I said, it's really interesting to just see how far you can take things, and hopefully the next video will be just as fun. I hope all of this made sense. If there's anything that I'm forgetting, I'm sorry. I was kind of trying to be quick to get this one done because I'm a little behind on the project itself. Hopefully from watching this you at least understand a little bit more about Cubase, the program that I'm using. I didn't really go through the process of writing the melodies because in the next video that's what I'm going to do, is teach you a little bit more about music theory and talk about the process of writing melodies and stuff like that, and hopefully come up with another creative way to make drums. Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to check out the other videos for the series if you'd like to know more. Thanks. Target engage.